All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our member highlight for this month. My name is Claire McLean. I'm a physical therapist here at Rogue. Very happy to have Bob here with us today. Bob, if you'll give us a little bit of background information about you, when were you diagnosed, anything that you'd like to share kind of about that experience, we'd love to hear about that to kind of get us in the right mindset and context for hearing more about your story.
Sure. Thanks, Claire. Happy to participate. My name is Bob, and I live in Encinitas, California, which is in San Diego County. We live on the coast, and so we're very lucky and fortunate to enjoy the good weather that you're enjoying up there at Rogue. There was a time when I actually hit the road and travel about an hour and a half to get to Rogue to work in person, but I've been working with you online for several months now, and it's working out really well. I was diagnosed in May of 2020. I was realizing some foot dropping. I had gait issues. I had a mild tremor, a facial mask, and some overall stiffness. But it took me probably 3 or 4 years to recognize that something was going on beyond just getting old. And so when I was diagnosed, pretty quickly thereafter, I retired from my business. I sold my company and really focused myself on exercise and taking care of myself. And so that's kind of how I got to Rogue, and it's been a great experience for me for the past couple of years.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we were so impressed that you came up for a period of time driving all the way up here from San Diego. That was far, but it was great to get a chance to meet each other in person, even if it wasn't something that made sense to do long term. It was great to get a chance
Right.
to meet. I think we can chat about this separate from this recording. But I think maybe coming up to do an assessment might be something even once a year and kind of do an in-person check-in might be something that would be helpful. But it was great to meet you in person, start exercising with you. And then I know there are some resources in the San Diego area that you've also utilized, and you're kind of putting together now the best plan. And it sounds like with another place that you're exercising down there, it is very helpful, but looking for kind of more, classes on more days of the week, more different types of classes, the range in, level and intensity for you that are the online membership really was a good addition to what you're doing kind of in your own community to exercise a little bit more. And it seems like some of the things that we're having conversations about, like the research and intensives, are things that you're interested in and looking at how to implement those in your life too.
Oh, very much looking forward to getting involved with the intensive. I'm looking forward to uh, the results that I'm anticipating from that. So let me back up just a second. In
Hmm.
addition to, I'll talk briefly about the medication that I've been taking, and that kind of ties to some of the goals that I'm trying to accomplish. So I started off with Cinemet, which I'm sure many of your clients are using. It's sort of the gold standard, and it was supplemented by rasagiline. And that was, as you can see, I have some dyskinesia that is still something I'm struggling with. And we decided with my neurologist that maybe I should try Crexont because of the time release aspect of Crexont. It was going to be more of a steady, even flow as opposed to what I was sometimes realizing with Cinemet was just getting dumped on with this massive amount of dopamine into my system. So I started off with the 70-280, the sort of medium-sized dose of Crexont, but I was able to reduce that by, I think it's about 25% to go down to the 52 and a half, 210. So that was one of my goals right from the outset, was to try to minimize my use of medication through exercise. And so
Hmm.
it's been very beneficial to be working with the Rogue and involved in a structured program such as you have. I've combined that with work that I do locally. Initially, I had a physical trainer that would come to my house 2 days a week, and she was able to access via the internet, some of the same resources that your your members have experienced over the years, specifically the power moves and some of the stretching and balance exercise that's so important with Parkinson's. And so she would come to my house 2 days a week and do a private workout with me, which was very helpful and useful, but it was probably not practical from a long-term standpoint because she was in transition in her career, and it was hard for her to make that commitment to be at my house consistently for 2 days a week. So
Hmm.
that coincided with identifying a more of a Parkinson's specific clinic in the San Diego area, similar to Rogue, but not as advanced or as experienced as Rogue. So just starting out. So I was taking some primarily high intensity um, workouts at this facility here in San Diego. And that kind of bridged me over to what I've been doing since the end of COVID, when Rogue has really expanded its offering for its online membership. And so I spend a lot of time online working with your power moves classes, your high intensity classes, and your functional strength classes. They really seem to be right on cue for what is called for in my workout regimen. But one of the things that I do that is kind of outside the realm of a Rogue or another Parkinson specific physical therapy facility is I am a big user of the trekking poles outside walking. And it
Hmm.
helps me with my stride. It helps me with my arm swing, and it really has addressed my many of my gait issues. And I think it's a key contributor to the fact that I've been able to optimize my medication and reduce the dosage amount. So I combine that with pretty consistently 2 to 3 days a week. I'm using power moves online with Rogue, either a live session in the morning or a tape session, which I find really helpful and convenient. And the power moves, even the 30-minute power move, really help me to maintain some flexibility and stability in my walking and my other exercise and pursuits. My
Hmm. Excellent. So how many days a week overall do you exercise?
Anywhere between 3 on the low end and 5 on the high end.
Okay, excellent. And how many days a week are you going for a walk like with the trekking poles?
That's 3 or 4 days a week.
Okay, excellent. So, and that has really helped with walking and arm swing and stability, and then power moves for flexibility. And then you mentioned that you use our online cardio class as well.
Yes,
And do you at home, do you have a bike or a treadmill? What piece of equipment do you use for cardio?
I have a bike. It's a version of a Peloton. It's a more beginner model for the Peloton.
Okay, great. So yeah, that is an excellent form for aerobic exercise. It's nice to do some cross training. I mean, walking is one of the best things that you can do, and the trekking poles really enhance the walking and what you can get out of it. But also the bike, in research has been shown to be great for another form of aerobic exercise. In terms of reducing risk of overuse injury, it's great to have variety in your exercise plan. The bike and online cardio classes are available when the weather might not be perfect, which for where we live, we are very lucky to have good weather a vast majority of the
Absolutely.
time, but it's been pretty hot for the past couple of weeks. Some people can be more sensitive with the heat, so it's nice to be able to exercise indoors when that is necessary. You mentioned you also use the functional strength class.
I do, and I've also replaced my uh, workout uh, therapist that would come to my house 2 days a week. I've replaced that with a membership to the local gym, to LA Fitness.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Yeah, it sounds like you have a really good plan with exercise and good consistency. You've mentioned a little bit already, but yeah, anything else that you've noticed that has improved with doing the forms of exercise that you are doing currently?
Well, a primary goal for me is to, beyond just trying to delay the progression of the disease, which I know is important for all of us. But a primary goal for me is to continue with some of my real active pursuits in my life, and that is skiing, hiking, and playing golf. And so I'm continuing to be active on a weekly basis with golf and with hiking, not so much with skiing because that's dependent upon the season, but I've been able to continue skiing both downhill and cross country, which is super exciting for me to be able to do that on a
Yeah.
seasonal basis.
Yeah, that's huge. Where do you go for your skiing?
We have a second home in Lake Tahoe, and so we spend a lot of time up there in the winter on the local slopes
Oh,
in
that's
and around
awesome.
Lake Tahoe.
Very good. What would you say? And you guess, I think you kind of answered this question already too, in terms of what motivates you to exercise. So you're motivated to slow the progression of Parkinson's and to keep being able to do the things that you enjoy doing.
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
correct?
And to try to reduce my reliance on medication solely.
Hmm. So you were saying you've switched over to Crexont. Have you switched completely from Cinemet to Crexont for all your doses of the day?
Yes,
And so that you've already experienced a reduction in the amount of dyskinesia that you're experiencing?
both from the initial move away from Cinemet to Crexont and then to the lower dose Crexont.
Hmm. All right, so it's gotten better, but you're still experiencing some. So that still is a goal for you to continue to be able to minimize that dyskinesia, correct?
Absolutely. And from what I understand, there's multiple causes of dyskinesia. There's kind of the traditional dopamine induced, so where you've got unused or unassigned dopamine that just kind of floods your system. But you can also be impacted by stress, nervousness, anxiety, and so which I think is more my problem than not. And so I've got a couple of to-do items on my list, and one of those is centered around breathing and meditation
Hmm.
to try to work on calming myself and being more relaxed through a more disciplined practice of breathing and meditation.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a new class that we're going to be getting started, Stretch and Flow. I'm really excited to try that because I think, again, breath work and meditation and kind of more gentle stretching, slow, more mindful movement is, again, good for everyone, but especially good for people who have dyskinesia and people who have freezing. So I'm very excited to get those classes started, and hopefully
Yeah,
that'll be a part of your plan in addition to a disciplined practice, probably on almost a daily basis of incorporating some of those things. I've seen some pretty remarkable in the moment improvement in dyskinesia when people do some breath work or they do slow power moves, linking their breathing with their movement. So I've seen people go from being very dyskinetic to really being able to calm their system. And I think that when you have that experience of seeing that something you do can really impact the dyskinesia, that's very empowering and exciting. And when you see that that is possible, it's very motivating to continue. And then you can see continued improvement. Um,
yeah, I'm
and
looking forward to that.
yeah, and then we also talked about, so we mentioned that you're, interested in doing the intensive. So we do a research highlight once a month, and a couple months back, I talked about an exercise intensive that a group in Italy has done, and they've utilized this exercise intensive in a number of different groups within people who have Parkinson's. So first, I think they did it with a group who were kind of average, 8 years of having Parkinson's, had, symptoms, changes in their function, showed that this exercise intensive helped them improve. They administered it in people newly diagnosed and showed that it really helped people even 2 years after to have done this exercise intensive. And then they did it specifically in a group of people with dyskinesia. And this, I think, is something that's really interesting. If you are going to kind of implement the intensive, it's great. It sounds like your neurologist is already on board and helping you make those medication changes to help support you. And when you go in saying, okay, I'm going to do an exercise intensive, and one of my goals is to try to reduce medication even further from where I'm at now. Um, the exercise intensive in this case, the research study was 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. They did aerobic exercise, stretching, and movements like the power moves. They did walking and balance training, and they worked with an occupational therapist. So we met once to talk about just kind of what this research said. We're going to have another meeting coming up where we talk about how each person could kind of decide to implement it and what is realistic. Some people might do 3 hours. Some people might say, I'm not actually going to dedicate 3 hours. I'm going to try 2 hours, because you could always try 2 hours, 5 days a week for a month and see how much better you're feeling. And if you realize, well, I actually need to do a little bit more, you could try that the following month or a different month. But when you're doing it somewhat on your own, you kind of can try something out. And you may even be able to tell after a week or two how well it's working or if you need to make an adjustment. And so in this study, they basically explained that the improvement and the reduction in dyskinesia was from getting in better shape and doing more exercise and really strengthening the circuitry in the brain, also from being able to reduce medication. And I think what they kind of explained is that when you do spend more time exercising and doing good movements, you basically get more time in the day where your brain is getting exposed to the best quality movements possible. And that's part of what we need is we need repetition, and we need to tip the balance depending on how much time a day you experience dyskinesia. We really need to try to tip the balance and have there be more time spent with good controlled movements, less time experiencing dyskinesia. And then a lot of times what may have felt like, kind of an out of control spiral into more and more dyskinesia, we can start to push that snowball up the hill and reverse that. It's not easy to do, but it is possible. And seeing research studies like that, I think it can be really inspiring and knowing, okay, this is possible. And now it's just figuring out how much time do I have? What can I dedicate? What is the schedule going to look like each week? Is there a way that I'm going to measure progress myself or possibly even working with your neurologist? Um, and then how are you going to be in touch with your neurologist about the opportunity for making adjustments to the medication over time? Um, so yeah, I'm very excited for you to try this and to see how it goes and see, what works and what tweaks you have to make. And you basically have the information now about how much total levodopa you are on per day, correct?
Yes,
Okay. How many times a day are you taking Crexont?
3 times a day, once every 5 hours,
Okay.
7, 12, and 5.
Okay. And you said, though, when it comes to dyskinesia, you also notice, does it feel like you do get dyskinesia consistently at a certain time after you've taken the medication, or is it a little bit more based on what you're doing, and that if you're nervous or excited, there's kind of other things that are the trigger for the dyskinesia?
Well, it's totally dependent on what I'm doing, and so that's a big determinant for me on what's driving my interaction and my optimization of my meds, both good and bad. And so, just one point I wanted to make before, and I'll come back to the dyskinesia in just a second, but power moves actually are a fantastic way for me to activate my medication. So when I take that in the morning and I'm at zero dopamine level, and if I were just to be passive, it would probably take me 45 minutes to an hour for the dose of Crexont to kick in. But if I can begin with power moves or some similar sort of movement with my body, it actually facilitates an earlier activation of the drug, and I can
Mm-hmm.
be up and running in 15 or 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very encouraging to me.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear.
But specific to dyskinesia, if I'm busy throughout the day and throughout my 5 hours on a dose, I can go that 5 hours without any dyskinesia.
Mm.
When I get into trouble with dyskinesia that's dopamine related is when I've taken it easy and not had a full schedule of physical activity. So on the weekend, for instance, when I do less structured exercise, I'm more likely to get some dopamine induced dyskinesia.
Mm.
So the other thing that occurs to me, and it's something that I'm eager to learn about the flow classes that you're talking about, in the breathing is when I get stressed out or nervous or at the dinner table, which is potentially stressful. That's when, even if I've had a good exercise routine for that past 5 hours, that's when the kind of stress induced dyskinesia kicks in.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I think there's both the opportunity for learning techniques that when you have that dyskinesia, you can help calm it down. But I even think there's the possibility of anticipating situations and knowing, okay, this could be a trigger. You might even have the opportunity to do something before that happens. So it's not like you're sitting at dinner and all of a sudden you're going to stop and meditate or do breathing exercise. Like once you're there, you want to be able to eat dinner. But if you know that this setting or scenario tends to be a trigger for dyskinesia, if you could say, okay, an hour before that, I'm going to do a guided meditation or I'm going to do a bit of breath work and see if that's something where you can actually kind of help your system calm going into that stressful situation and hopefully prevent that dyskinesia from coming on. I think that would be really cool to see if that works. And I think it definitely
Totally
could.
looking forward to it. Yes.
And you said the Crexont, you were at a higher dose. The second number is the levodopa. Are you on the 140 milligram of levodopa Crexont
I
or is
started
it
on the two
210?
started on the 280 and
Okay.
now I'm on the 210.
Okay. So you still have one more. You could go down to 140 Crexont. There's still one more step down
Right.
if you that was tolerable. If it didn't feel like it was too little levodopa at that time.
Correct. And so I'm really interested to see if by getting involved in the intensive, if that can reduce my need for that levodopa component of correction.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. I think what we'll have to do is we probably will have to schedule maybe another one of these calls after you do the intensive to check and see how things went. How are you feeling? If there's things that improved, if things did or didn't change as much as you wanted them to, what you're continuing to work on. I'd love to have a check-in after you get a chance to do the intensive.
Right. I'd love to participate.
Awesome. All right. And then, yeah, before we wrap up for today, is there anything that you would like to share? Any words of wisdom or encouragement for other people who might be watching this? I would say you've already shared a lot when it comes to dyskinesia of people understanding that dyskinesia can be medication related more specifically, or it also can be related to other parts of your life, stress induced. So just that alone, I think, is something that people could learn from, and the ability to assess when you have dyskinesia, what triggers it, how much of it is medication versus other things already is super important for people to understand because the better you understand what's going on with yourself, you can communicate better with your neurologist for them to help support you and make tweaks to medication. And really can even make some of those tweaks on your own potentially under the supervision of your neurologist. But thank you for sharing all that information. But is there anything else that you would share with anyone watching this video?
Well, just an emphasis on my desire to optimize my use of medication, even if that means reducing down my dependence upon it and replacing that with exercise. So that's really important for me. Some other to-dos that I think are equally important into the future is I work a lot on sleep, and I really enjoyed the sleep research discussion you had last week. But being more diligent about a sleep schedule is high on my list. I'm still working on managing constipation that results from Parkinson's, and that has a direct impact on my utilization of the drug. So they kind of go hand in hand, and so it's what's in my stomach is important, which then kind of leads me to the next one area of improvement, and that's to eat better overall,
Hmm.
just to eat better because I recognize the potential for an improved diet on my utilization of medication and my management of my constipation. So they're all tied
Hmm.
together.
Yeah, they are. And I think, a lot of times people think, oh, I have to do all these things because of Parkinson's. But many of the things you said are things that trying to optimize my wellness, even in middle age, I'm focusing on sleep. I realize I have to get ready to go to bed significantly earlier than I think I should have to actually get in bed and then get the number of hours of sleep that I'm aiming for each night. And what we eat, I mean, what we eat matters for all of us in terms of our health. For you, you really feel the difference on a daily basis, probably, if things are moving well or not in medication absorption and everything. But those same changes you're making, possibly to eat more fiber and really stay hydrated, are things that are going to benefit your health in other ways too. So yeah, you are correct. It all fits together, and being, really conscious and making those decisions is going to help you in so many ways, not just in medication utilization. When it comes to constipation, I don't know if you saw in the daily email, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, we made a strawberry chia pudding, and it is so good. It's delicious, and it really is excellent for constipation. My friend is pregnant right now, and during pregnancy is a time where a lot of women have constipation with hormonal changes, more progesterone. So she was telling me that she's really been having difficulty for a few months, and I made her this chia pudding, and the next day she already said she had the best bowel movement that she's had in months. So the recipe is you take like strawberry was the main one, but you can use a lot of different fruits like mangoes and different things. But strawberries, either fresh or frozen, mix that with a plant-based milk, soy, oat milk, whichever one is your favorite, coconut, if you really like coconut. You're going to blend that up and make it in kind of to a liquid. And then you add chia seeds, put it in the refrigerator in a jar or some container. Give it a couple hours for the chia seeds to soak up some of the liquid. And then you eat that. Like, you can make it a little bit thicker or thinner. I like to make it a little thinner sometimes and just drink it. It's kind of convenient, but you can make it thicker and eat it like a pudding. You could add a little more sweetener, or you can add like cacao nibs or something to it to make it a dessert. But if you make that and have it consistently, we've already had multiple members who have tried it, and for constipation, it already makes a big difference. Chia seeds is one of the best things that really help things move through your system smoother. So I'd highly recommend trying it.
That's great. One of the things that I'm sure members are experiencing or have experienced is when they start taking the medication, specifically Cinemet was my experience. There's some initial like uh, nausea or just not feeling quite right, and so that works against you. So you're trying to juggle what food should I put in my stomach? Should I be on an empty stomach? Should I be taking something for my nausea to help me get over that? And then that's impacting my utilization of the drugs. So I spent some time with a gastroenterologist who is familiar with Parkinson's and treats a lot of Parkinson's patients. And he was really helpful in kind of helping me through what to put in my stomach to not work against my introduction of the levodopa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad that you've been able to access those resources that can give you the support. And, a lot of people live in areas. We are very lucky in Southern California to have a lot of high level resources, specialists, GI doctors who really work a lot with people with Parkinson's, be near universities where there are specialists. We're really fortunate. But even people who may not live near those resources may have access, online visits and things like that. So for anyone watching, if there's a certain kind of, specialist professional that you think you could benefit from working with, I highly recommend you check and see, what is available online if there isn't someone right in your area, because meeting with people who really understand Parkinson's is like a GI doctor who understands Parkinson's is completely different than a GI doctor who does not. Because, yeah, medication, interactions, digestion, there are so many things that are really specific to Parkinson's. It makes a huge difference to get the right information early on, so you can start feeling better as fast as possible. All
Yes,
right. Well, thank you so much for joining and sharing your story. I think people are going to learn a lot from this. And then we'll figure out, you let me know when you're going to be able to implement the exercise intensive. And then we'll check in afterwards to hear about what your experience was, what improvements you experienced, and kind of how you're going to, continue with exercise going forward after you do the exercise intensive.
great. Thanks, Claire.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining today. We'll see you soon.
Bye.